Tonight, a big pay rise for millions of Australians, the biggest wage increase in 16 years.
A shock move in the power crisis as authorities take extraordinary steps to head off blackouts.
Brisbane residents slugged with the biggest rate rise in more than a decade.
A quick-thinking homeowner uses a forklift to trap a Logan car thief until police arrive.
The Big Brother cameras at Bunnings and Kmart are using to spy on their customers.
And the Queensland mums building family-friendly careers from home.
Live from Brisbane, 7 News with Sharon Gadella and Max Butcher.
Good evening. Millions of Australians will receive a pay rise of $40 a week after a landmark decision to boost the minimum wage. Workers will take home at least $21.38 an hour.
The 5.2% leap exceeds inflation, sitting at 5.1%. It will be the largest wage increase workers have seen in 16 years.
The minimum wage gets a maximum increase. Good news for workers like Jack Shortino.
I mean, that's terrific. Cost of living is just going up.
But one person's wage rise is another person's wages bill rise.
I don't really know what I have to do.
Barber Ben Zolfagari says his business will take a big haircut. His prices will have to rise, or else...
If I have to close it, that's what I have to do.
The Fair Work Commission's decision for the 200,000 workers on the minimum wage, $40 a week, a 5.2% increase to $21.38 an hour. And for the 2.5 million on awards pegged to it, $40 a week for those on up to $869.60. Above that, a 4.6% rise.
This level of increase will protect the real value of the wages of the lowest paid workers.
For the government, a political victory. Its submission sought a rise above inflation, currently 5.1%. Or, as the now Prime Minister put it during Seven's Leaders debate,
$1.
And again today.
Just $1.
The result, $1.05 an hour. Those low-paid workers, he says, the heroes of the pandemic.
These workers deserve more than our thanks. They deserve a pay rise, and today they've got it.
People will be seeing in their bank accounts what the change of government means.
For most, the increase will be paid from July 1, but delayed for hospitality, tourism and aviation workers until October 1.
There are sectors of the economy which are still struggling to come out of the pandemic.
After a decade of real wage cuts, it's by far the largest increase. The unions had wanted 5.5%, business 3%.
The union movement is really happy with this outcome.
This represents a very significant risk to the economy.
Business says it will add $7.9 billion a year to its wages bill, fueling higher inflation and tighter profit margins.
It could mean that some businesses will have to face the difficult decision to close their doors.
A real increase in the minimum wage, but the fear, with inflation tipped to skyrocket, the wages claims follow, setting off a dangerous feedback loop. Prices and pay chasing each other higher and higher.
I worry that it is going to be tough under Labor over the course of the next 3 years.
The Reserve Bank has warned a wages price spiral could embed high inflation for years. And then Anthony Albanese will really need all the protection he can get. Mark Riley, 7 News.
Queensland's power crisis has come to a head tonight. The national energy body stepping in and suspending the market to calm our volatile power grid. It's taken over control to secure our power supply as generators are accused of playing games to get compensation.
An unprecedented step to ensure Queensland households can keep the lights on.
Today, AEMO has suspended the national electricity market.
The Australian energy market operator taking over our power supply, forcing generators to feed into the grid despite record high costs.
It was impossible to operate the system under current conditions.
The generators had been accused of playing games with our supply, withholding electricity while the price was capped at $300 a megawatt an hour. It triggered warnings of power outages.
The power system is tight tonight and it's likely to be tight again tomorrow.
This afternoon's move staves off drastic plans for load shedding, which have never been needed in Queensland before. When Queensland is told it needs to save power, it's up to Energex to decide who gets shut off. It looks at the suburbs using the most electricity and the ones using solar, which feed energy back into the grid. We're told there's no list, but homes located near an emergency centre, like a hospital, are least likely to be affected. For now, we're assured the supply is secure.
It is not a mess. It is under control.
And it's about to get better. 8 of Queensland's 103 power stations are out of action, but some will soon come back online, including Swanbank in September, Callide B2 on July 1 and Callide C3 by the end of this week.
There are 4 other generating units that are privately owned that are coming back on over the next couple of months.
The suspension of the market is temporary and will be reviewed daily.
We'll return the market to its normal state once AMO is confident that we can operate the market again and not see generators withdraw their availability.
Bizarrely, the generators will be compensated for being forced to supply power, but if they're found to have breached the rules earlier this week, they'll pay the price.
We can take action in the federal court and we can get breaches of up to $10 million per breach.
A high-stakes power struggle when so many are struggling to pay for power. Samantha Heathwood, 7 News.
And soon on 7 News, how to beat the electricity price rises. What you need to do now. Details coming up later in the bulletin. Brisbane homeowners have been slugged with the largest rate hike in more than a decade, proving a further hit to the cost of living. The Lord Mayor blames the unprecedented events of the past 12 months for the increase, but claims Brisbane rates still represent good value.
First came COVID, then the floods. Now we pay the price.
This budget is a flood recovery budget. This budget is a rebuilding budget.
But one that's hit the budget of Brisbane residents hard. The average rate rise is 4.93%, adding an extra $85 to your rates bill each year, around $1.63 per week. Across the city, residents like Elizabeth Handley are calculating their own sums.
Back of the envelope calculation for me from my rates, it was almost $500 a year. So that's a big difference from 85.
The highest increases occurred in Lake Manchester and Grange. The lowest, Bayside's Lota.
The rate increase today will see thousands of residents possibly tipped over the edge, and Adrian Schrinner simply doesn't care.
The hikes forced by a hit to city finances. The pandemic costing council $200 million, the floods $330 million. But the Lord Mayor proudly points out the average rate increase is still below inflation and lower than other southeast councils, and hopes it's a one-off.
This is a unique year. This is not what it's going to be like going forward. Touch wood. We're expecting that things will normalise going forward. I hope that's next year and the year after.
For the first time, the Brisbane City Council budget has pushed past $4 billion, $2.65 billion to be spent running council, $1.35 on infrastructure. $500 million goes to the rebuild and recovery of flood-damaged parks, pools and other assets. But there are a few new projects. A cycling and skating complex in Murarrie geared towards Olympics training, one of the few. But there are new initiatives, including a housing crisis policy, a 50% rate rise for homes used as short-term accommodation like Airbnb to push them into the rental stock. In a further effort to ease the housing crisis, Council today announced its intention to identify underutilised commercial areas around the city and rezone them for residential development.
It's all about providing more housing supply to help keep the cost of housing down.
As the cost of everything else goes up. And as those costs go up, Council is certainly not immune. Today, the Lord Mayor pointed to one interesting stat. The price of bitumen has spiked almost 50% in recent times. And of course, plenty of that is needed to repair potholes and roads following the floods. Other expenses, things like fuel and steel, all needed for the recovery, all skyrocketing. So in a bid to balance the books, that is why we have seen Council cancel or pause a number of major infrastructure projects. On the flip side, they will attract a record amount of rate revenue. Today, the Lord Mayor confirmed Brisbane is now the fastest growing capital city in the country.
Thank you, Joel. And 7 News will keep you up to date on council budgets across the southeast. Moreton Bay Regional Council will hand down its budget on Friday before Logan City Council on Monday. Redlands and Sunshine Coast residents will have their council budgets delivered on June 23rd, while Ipswich locals can expect the same on June 30.
And later, Brisbane's new Airbnb tax. Will it really help ease the pain of the southeast rental crisis? That story is soon on 7 News. 7%. That's how high inflation could get by Christmas. The country's top banker has warned. We haven't seen inflation hit that level in 32 years. And as inflation goes up with the cost of living, so too will interest rates.
Reserve Bank governors only speak publicly when they have something significant to say.
We'll do what's necessary to get inflation back to 2 to 3%.
A warning shot across the Australian mortgage belt. Interest rates will spike. How much?
And it's unclear at the moment how far interest rates will need to go up to get that.
With petrol, power, groceries all surging, the bank last month predicted inflation would lift from 5.1 to 5.9% by year's end. It's worse.
Inflation's too high. By the end of the year, I expect inflation to get to 7%.
The rare public comments caused instant reaction. Banks predicting hard, fast rate rises. Goldman Sachs was expecting a 0.25% hike in August and again in September. Now it's predicting a 0.5% jump each time, while Deutsche Bank goes even further, saying 0.5% in July and a heightened risk of 0.75% in August. For mortgage holders, it's a cruel irony. The RBA is effectively increasing the costs of living to try and bring down the costs of living. But Dr. Lowe says he's extremely confident that these measures and improving global factors will see inflation fall. When?
By the first quarter of next year.
With warnings that a 7% inflation rise was an average, many goods would go far higher, especially essentials.
So you can't shield yourself from those price increases, and therefore the hit to the household budget is immediate and difficult to work around.
The supermarket giants today claiming to be doing their bit to help too. Woolworths putting a price freeze on 200 home brand products.
Making them immune from inflationary pressure means that customers can have some certainty on things that they're going to buy in their shop each and every week.
Coles countering with their own pitch.
You've got to work harder than ever to give value. We've got 1,500 products that year on year are still at the same price.
Consumers will be looking for savings, with the next rate hike expected at the RBA's upcoming July 5 meeting. Chris Reason, 7 News.
The free fall has slowed, but Australian shares have continued to retreat. They've now lost 7% of their value in 5 days, and it's hurting our superannuation returns.
After shaving off more than $82 billion yesterday, today some red and green. The ASX 200 finishing down 1.27% at 6,601 points. Christmas colours, but no cause for celebration yet.
There's probably more to come. I believe we're halfway through the current bear market.
Rising inflation and interest rates are hurting share markets, dampening enthusiasm to invest in companies and buy their products and services.
Then investors will start to get confident again. I'm seeing that happening sometime in the next 6 to 9 months.
For the 11 months from July 1 to May 31, the median balance super fund fell 0.3%. But the recent slump puts it on track to finish the financial year on June 30, down 4 to 5%.
If we are down by 4 or 5%, that's offset against the previous return of 18%.
Super experts recommend checking you're comfortable with how much risk you're taking with your retirement savings.
Your super's focused on the long term. If you're not sure, it's probably best to talk to your fund or to your advisor.
All eyes are now on the US central bank, the Federal Reserve, which will announce its latest interest rate decision tonight. With inflation in the US running at 8.6% and the unemployment rate at 3.6%, the fear is that the Fed will hike interest rates too far and too fast, triggering a recession there, dealing a big blow to economic growth around the world, and crucially, here in Australia. Gemma Acton, 7 News.
5 juveniles have been arrested on the Gold Coast after allegedly crashing a stolen Jeep. Georgia Costi, they were spotted travelling in convoy with another stolen vehicle.
Max, the children as young as 13 years old were seen scoping out homes in Benogan. A truck driver tried to trap them, but the teens were able to get away along with another vehicle, a BMW. The occupants were also allegedly trying to break into homes in Varsity Lakes. Several police units gave chase. Eventually, the driver lost control, launching into an embankment in Coomera. 5 teenagers have been charged, but those in the BMW escaped. They were last seen travelling on the M1 towards Brisbane.
Thank you, Georgia. In an alarming escalation of the health crisis, more than half of ambulances were ramped at Brisbane hospitals in March. New figures revealing the dire state of congestion in emergency departments as advocates demand a health-dominated state budget.
Sirens silent, ambulances parked with patients. This is a scene repeated across the state's hospitals that's becoming more and more frequent.
I'm not actually shocked. It's kind of what things have been like for the last 18 months.
New figures revealing for the month of March, more than half of ambulances were stuck ramped at 9 Brisbane hospitals. Princess Alexandra and Redland were the worst, with more than 2/3 ramped, while the Prince Charles, RBWH and Caboolture hospitals also experienced a sharp rise.
In Brisbane, every major hospital has ambulance ramping over 50%. That is uncharted territory.
Well, we know there's pressures on health systems around Australia and around the world.
Unions want an extra 1,000 staff over 4 years, plus a huge budget investment in health services to free up hundreds of hospital beds.
Divert people away from hospitals to look at what other options of care there are in the community.
First COVID waves, now influenza poses the latest threat to already clogged EDs. More than 8,300 flu infections were recorded in the last fortnight.
We're seeing all these case numbers now. Normally we wouldn't see this many until July, August.
There is some hope though. After levelling out last week, the latest flu report shows the number of new cases is starting to drop, suggesting we may have already reached the winter flu peak, but experts say complacency can be costly. Garth Burley, 7 News.
Last night's full moon has brought some king tides to the southeast. Paul Burt, are we expecting high tides again tonight?
Maxie, absolutely. It's going to be fairly big. Last night we had them around that 2.6 metres. Generally this time of the year in the rivers it's around 1.5 metres, 2 metres at the entrance to the Brisbane River, but put an extra half a metre on top of that again tonight. This is around Albion and Breakfast Creek last night, water lapping around the tyres of vehicles. And of course, why that is because the stormwater drains are actually lower than these king tides we're getting at the moment. Again, down here on the Gold Coast, we're going to see those low-lying areas around Budds Beach and Labrador being inundated over the next 3 hours. So if you're in those areas, there's a bit of water around the streets, wouldn't be driving through it, it's going to be salt.
Good advice. Thanks for that, Bertie. Now to Tony Auden. Tony, it was a foggy start to the day.
Yes, Maxwell, we've had plenty of sunny breaks through the day. It was a bit more closed in early this morning, mostly thinner fog or mist around the Brisbane CBD, but it was thick out in the west. It's all thanks to this humid air mass that's helping us keep a little bit warmer at the moment, but as it cools down at night time, it condenses into cloud and fog, and we are expecting some more fog across the region tonight and tomorrow morning. I'm at Shorncliffe at the moment. We've just enjoyed a beautiful sunset over the water. It could be worth a visit round here into tomorrow. We're expecting warm temperatures and more sunny skies. I'll be back soon with the forecast.
Warm temperatures are good. All right, thank you, Tony. She thought she'd got away with it. Next to the heights a Logan car owner went to trap a thief.
The new tools to help parents keep track of their children online.
The big change for travellers at Queensland airports.
And before weather, you're being watched. Why some big Australian retailers are secretly recording your face.
Seven News brought to you by Industry Super Funds.
Pretty soon the amount of super paid on top of our wages will go up. And up. And up. All the way to 12% guaranteed. That extra money will make a big difference when I retire. Put my feet up. You see, your future is even more super.
Travellers can breathe easily in Queensland airports with the mask mandate set to end at midnight on Friday. Ned Balm, airports across the country have backed the decision.
They have, Sharon. The Australian Airport Association was glowing about the call to scrap the mandate, saying it's not only welcome news for those travelling, but also those who work at the airport. No longer will they have to, I suppose, have a look at passengers wearing their masks. They also won't have to wear their own for their shifts that can last anywhere from 8 to 12 hours. Now, the Queensland Health Minister, Vet Darth, came out today. She has backed the health recommendations, and they will bring Queensland airports back into line with other venues such as shopping centres and supermarkets. That being said, if you are catching a flight, you will have to wear a mask on the plane.
All right, Ned, thank you. Parents who fear Instagram is a bad influence on their children can now have greater control over their kids' accounts. The changes are designed to promote conversations, but critics say they don't go far enough.
Wait, 'cause I got the juice.
11-year-old Amaya is a rising star on social media, but for now her mum Nicole manages her Instagram account.
At the moment, because they're still a child, I can manage her page and I can see what she's looking at, but when she turns 16, 17, I have no control over that.
New parental controls on the site are giving power back to parents. They can now see who their children follow or are followed by and what their child reports to Instagram. They can also monitor usage and set time limits.
It's a step in the right direction. It's certainly not a fix-all. There is an enormous amount of inappropriate content that still circulates all around Instagram.
A new family hub on the site providing access to mental health support.
To help create more constructive conversations between young people and parents about how they're using Instagram.
But there's one major catch. The parent and the child must both agree to the new controls before they can be activated. And even then, experts believe they can only go so far.
We want them to speak up when things go wrong. That is the most important thing you can get through to a child as a parent. It's when they go quiet and try and hide things that it can get all out of control.
Sonia Marinelli, 7 News.
Biloela's Narasalingham family met Prime Minister Anthony Albanese during his visit to Gladstone today. The family was welcomed back to central Queensland last week, 4 years after they were placed into detention. The PM was greeted with a bunch of flowers as a thank you from the family. Could this be the answer to the southeast's rental crisis? Brisbane's new Airbnb tax. So, will it make it easier to find a place to live?
How a Logan resident used a forklift to stop a car thief. See the full video.
A man accused of stealing $1 million from his elderly Gold Coast mother.
And after sport, meet the mums doing it all, how they're taking on the business world from home. A man has gone to new heights to stop a thief from stealing his car. Brendan Mills used a forklift to sweep the woman and the car off the ground before calling for help.
If only every arrest was this simple. Police arrive at a Waterford West home to find the case closed. A car thief hung out to dry.
Yeah, just sort it down, mate.
This red Volkswagen Polo, sky high, on a forklift.
They can't get out the passenger side because the forklift's there.
Police say the 24-year-old woman inside the car broke into the Waterford West home, had a shower and stole clothing before moving onto the car. Brendan Mills returned home and caught the woman, quickly coming up with a plan while waiting for police. When officers arrived, the car was lowered and the woman was arrested.
Out you get.
The 24-year-old has been charged with burglary and unlawful use of a motor vehicle. She was granted police bail and will appear in court next month. Hopefully, in a less dramatic fashion. Dante Chekon, 7 News.
It's designed to ease the rental crisis, a new tax on Airbnb owners in Brisbane. But advocates have already labelled the Lord Mayor's rates rise as a band-aid on a much bigger issue.
Tracy Ryan has been couch surfing since Easter, forced to move around while hunting for a rental.
Every one I apply for, they just keep knocking me back.
Council is stepping in by increasing rates on short-term rental properties, hoping owners put them back on the long-term market.
We've effectively made those rates commercial rates because the use of the property is a commercial use.
Owners of properties advertised on websites like Airbnb will pay around $500 more each year, which some properties earn in one weekend.
Paying an extra 50% in your rates probably won't constitute sufficient enough disincentive.
Council has received more than 275 complaints about short-term rentals in the past year in suburbs as diverse as Darra, Wavell Heights and Paddington. Most are in the inner city, including South Brisbane and Kangaroo Point.
Think about how you would feel as a resident if your next door neighbour kept on changing every second night.
Short-term rentals account for around 4% of the country's housing market, with around 3,600 properties across Brisbane. Some advocates don't think the rates hike is enough to shrink those figures.
We should be increasing rates by 500% on these Airbnb properties and banning them entirely.
A drop in the ocean of a statewide crisis. Anna McGraw, 7 News.
A man has been arrested after allegedly stealing more than $1 million from his sick and elderly Gold Coast mother. Authorities claim the 64-year-old Victorian drained the 83-year-old's bank account over a 4-year period.
It's gut-wrenching and it's just disgusting.
It followed an 18-month investigation between Victoria and Queensland Police. He'll face court next month.
Actress Amber Heard claims important pieces of evidence were left out of her defamation battle with ex-Johnny Depp. In her first interview since losing the case, she spoke of the social media campaign against her.
Doubling down on abuse claims dismissed by a jury.
To my dying day, will stand by every word of my testimony.
Amber Heard sat down to have the last word.
This was the most humiliating and horrible thing I've ever been through.
Her allegations of domestic violence in a 2018 opinion piece ended with a $15 million ruling against her.
Do you find that Mr. Depp has proven all the elements of defamation? Answer, yes.
Throughout the 6-week trial, Depp fans crowded the court and threw their support behind him on social media.
And the jury is not immune to that.
You think the jury saw it?
How could they not?
Describing her view from the witness stand.
Just a courtroom packed full of Captain Jack Sparrow fans.
Holding her feet to the fire, the breakfast host reminded Heard of audio played to jurors admitting she instigated some of the fights.
When you're living in violence and it becomes normal, you have to adapt.
Oh, you got this going? You got this going? Oh, really?
In the closing arguments, the Depp lawyer called your testimony the performance of a lifetime and said you were acting. What do you say to that?
Says the lawyer for the man who convinced the world he had scissors for fingers. I'm the performer.
Insisting she only ever told the truth.
And that's all I spoke. And I spoke it to power, and I paid the price.
In the United States, Ashley Mullaney, 7 News.
The state's top models have battled it out for a place on the Ekka Fashion Show runway in August. After a forced 2-year break, the event set-up begins next week as organisers prepare to host the biggest show yet.
Stunning, stylish and strutting their stuff for a spot on the 2022 Ekka runway.
It's the largest audience of any fashion show in Queensland.
100 of Queensland's top models put their best foot forward this morning. Only 7 women and 3 men will be selected, representing Queensland fashion in 27 shows over 9 days.
The theme of this year's parade is Stories of Style, and that tells the journey of the fibre to fashion story.
Damaro Kenner has only been modelling for 1 year. He says performing at the Ekka would be life-changing.
Paying a ticket to go to Ekka and actually now being a part of it, it's just crazy.
The lucky top 10 will be chosen in the next 2 days. Over at the showgrounds, Bump In begins next week.
The first things to be built are the showbag pavilion and some of our animal nursery areas.
After a 2-year break, organisers are bracing for record crowds, over 400,000 people.
Tickets are already on sale. If showgoers subscribe to the Ekka website, they can get 30% off their entry from Friday.
On top of that, we have our Super Saver Days, which are already 20% off.
A chance to enjoy the People's Show on a budget. Crystal Etherington, 7 News.
With prices surging, now is the time to lock in your electricity rate. Expert advice on why you could save money just by having a good look at your bill.
The secret spy technology being used by some big Aussie retailers.
And an American man's bizarre battle with his pet emu.
Checking finance now, the Australian share market has lost more ground. The ASX 200 was down 85 points. Suncorp managed to recover some losses, but energy and mining stocks suffered today, BHP falling almost 1%. The Australian dollar is mostly steady, buying 69 US cents.
Less than a year after nearly losing her life in a cycling crash, champion triathlete Lex Leary was giving back today as part of the RBWH Foundation's annual Giving Day. Lex learned to walk again thanks to the team at the hospital, and now her family helps the foundation.
You've got to pump it up. We support a whole range of things at the hospital, from patient care, music therapy, therapy dogs, through to really important medical research.
As a boost today, every donation until midnight is matched, dollar for dollar. Go to the 7 News Facebook page to donate.
It's power price chaos. Some plans have jumped by almost 300% and others are still climbing. But it's not too late to soften the impact. You can lock in a better deal now before they jump on the 1st of July.
Reluctantly checking the mailbox, 31-year-old Rosie Nichols lives on the minimum wage, and like the rest of us, is struggling with the rising cost of living, including power.
I work at a cafe, so, basically I just have to work more to afford to live.
And prices will continue to go up.
I am worried about it, but I don't know what we can really do.
You need to shop around.
A good fixed rate plan looks like a really good strategy right now. It's a bit like a mortgage. The cheapest rates around might be on variable plans, but there's always a risk they could change.
What's cheap? Check the Energy Made Easy website. Anything 10% less than the government reference price is a good deal.
Cheap fixed rate plans are disappearing by the day, but there are still some available. For example, I think Energy Australia's no frills plan is still on the market in Queensland. That's better than 10% less than the government reference price.
Another thing you can do is check if your power bill is estimated. If workers can't access your property's meter, you could be paying for more power than you're using. How to cut your usage: set your heating between 18 to 20 degrees. Every degree above that increases energy use by 5 to 10%. Use heaters in economy mode. Rug up with warm clothes and blankets. Wash clothes in cold water. Turn off unused appliances and use door snakes to stop air leaks, saving power and money. Georgie Chumley, 7 News.
A backyard fight between an emu and its owner has become an internet sensation. The family in Texas has used an unusual weapon of choice to keep their pet at bay. Toby and Michelle Wilson have had Cosmo since she hatched 5 years ago, but since having her own chick, the emu has become aggressive.
I tell them, I say, look, bird, you better get away. Don't do it. Don't do it. I'll give you the noodle.
Seems for Toby, the noodle is all that stands between mowing and being mowed down.
Major retailers have admitted using facial recognition on customers. The big brands explain what they're doing and why. As privacy experts warn, shoppers should be worried. Their advice is just ahead on 7 News. But now here's a face we all know well.
I'm not sure if that's good or bad, Sharon. Hello, everyone. Coming up in sport, one of the league's feel-good stories, ready for Chapter 2. Our World Cup qualifiers home and ready for the next episode of their amazing journey. And after the frustrations of COVID, an Aussie is again the toast of Royal Ascot.
This Sport Report brought to you by Ladbrokes Mates Mode.
The Broncos and Maroons have dodged bullets with two of the best south of the border. No chance of playing this weekend or Origin 2. Latrell Mitchell is still weeks away, while Ryan Pappenhausen's return has been iced by COVID, extending league's newest feel-good story.
At the beginning of last month, Grant Anderson was stretchered off with a neck injury. Last week, he was plucked from the sunny coast into one of league's superpowers.
And he's got a double on debut for Melbourne.
He was able to go out there and play the way he wanted to, perform at a really high level, so it was really nice to see. He backed himself.
He played exactly the way he does for us. He just gives it everything. For Grant's sake, I hope he gets as much exposure as he can. He's going to be down there for 6 weeks regardless.
Pappenhausen's positive also one for Anderson, keeping his spot in a Storm side wary of Brisbane's wounded Warriors.
The Broncos are playing with a lot of energy and aggression at the moment, and it's going to be up to us to try and nullify that.
Latrell Mitchell won't be answering a Blues Hail Mary SOS. He's just out of isolation after missing missing 10 weeks with injury.
It's not about whether he's playing Origin or he's playing for us. It's about whether he's fit to play rugby league at NRL level, let alone Origin level, and he's not.
Up north, mystery and intrigue over Luciano Leilua's move to the Cowboys. They want him, have room in the salary cap, but were shocked he was released by the Tigers yesterday.
Very much so. We're still working through a process, and when there's something official to tell them, we'll tell it.
What is official? The Cowboys NRLW team. Next year, they'll be joining the Sharks, Tigers and Raiders in a new 10-team comp instead of the proposed 8.
But we are going to go as fast as we can without compromising quality, and we have the support of our board.
Now, here's the round 15 tips with Webby and Gilly.
Getting harder to see you back there in the rear view mirror. My lead's now 5.
Cockiness will be your undoing, and so will this round. Starting with the Dragons in Andrew McCulloch's 300th game.
I tossed over this one and came up with the bunnies, so there's your first mistake, and I'm backing the Cowboys.
Oh, giddy up. I'm on that bandwagon. And the Broncos to make it 8 straight in the match of the round.
It'll be a belter, but too many injuries, Brisbane, so put me down for the Storm and the Sharks on Saturday.
I'm with you there. The Titans have some serious problems, and the Panthers, well, they'll just win.
You bet they will. The Warriors won't know what hit them, and put me down for the Roosters.
Jeez, the Eels were ordinary. The Roosters for me as well. And the Green Machine will slay the Knights.
Sticky's got them humming, and even though they cost me the perfect round, I'm backing the Dogs.
Can they back it up? Easy against the Tigers.
The great kiss of death. Good luck.
Our World Cup bound Socceroos have just returned home, clearing customs in Sydney. These pictures just in show Graham Arnold's men swamped by media and fans. The biggest reception and littlest hug reserved for the Grey Wiggle goalkeeper Andrew Redmayne after his penalty shootout heroics. They'll play France, Denmark and Tunisia in Qatar come November. Teammates could scarcely believe what they saw from David Warner in the one-day series opener against Sri Lanka.
Could be out. Oh, that's unbelievable. What a catch that is by David Warner. Outstanding.
The reaction to the leaping one-hander from Ashton Agar, who later suffered a side injury, was priceless. Chasing a rain-reduced target of 282, Glenn Maxwell hammered an unbeaten 80 off 51 balls, guiding the Aussies to a tense 2-wicket victory with 9 balls to spare. Johnny Bairstow clubbed England's fastest test ton since 1902 on the final day of the second test against New Zealand at Trent Bridge.
Stand and deliver, Johnny Bairstow.
Chasing 299 to clinch the series, Bairstow brought up his century off 77 balls and went on to make 136. England won by 5 wickets to take an unassailable 2-0 lead in the 3-test series. Nature Strip is being lauded as the greatest sprinter on earth after dominating today's King's Stand Stakes. He was Australia's first winner at Royal Ascot since Black Caviar a decade ago.
The pageantry, the pomp, Prince Charles standing in for the Queen, all part of this spectacular week of racing. And a sprinkling of Aussies cheering for their super sprinter against a US superstar.
And slow away was Golden Pal. Golden Pal missed the start.
The American blew it early. Cardim lost its rider. It mattered little. Nature Strip was in a different stratosphere.
Salute a world-class sprinter. Nature Strip, a ripper in the King's Stand.
J-Mac in awe.
He's just an absolute freak of a horse. And I think he would have silenced a few critics with that performance.
To be able to bring a horse all this way, it's pretty special to be able to not only win, but win the way he did.
Next target, the Everest. US Open fans have embraced Phil Mickelson despite his defection to the Greg Norman Run Live series. The controversial breakaway has hijacked discussion this week in Boston.
I'm tired of the conversations. I'm tired of all this stuff. Y'all, like I said, y'all are throwing a black cloud on the US Open. I think that sucks.
Everyone's answered the question differently, I think, this week, but my focus is just to be here and play good golf.
Serena Williams, at age 40, has revealed on social media that she'll chase an 8th Wimbledon in just under a fortnight. The 23-time major champion hasn't played since withdrawing from Wimbledon last year with a leg injury. Pat Welch, 7 News.
And Shannon Max, that's our midweek sport.
Right, thank you, Webby. They're the mogul mums taking control of their own lives and creating empires in the process.
Their booming businesses were born out of a need to balance work and family life. Tonight, 7 News has the top tips on how you can become a successful mumpreneur as well.
What started in a garage is now big business. Girls' sportswear label Impy recently moving to a new Kenmore headquarters as orders boom.
So the first year was pretty slow, but then by the second year we'd actually doubled sales. And then this year again, we've doubled sales again.
It started 3 years ago when Kim's young daughters began running. There was no age-appropriate activewear. She saw it as an opportunity to develop a clothing line while being more available for her kids.
You just want flexibility. So if you need to be at a sports event or you need to pick your kids up from school because they're sick, you've got that flexibility.
It's the same reason podcast producer Brianna Ansoldo launched her own business 7 years ago. After a successful singing career, she wanted a job better suited to having a young baby.
I wanted to be flexible in my work, and I wanted to be able to be there for all the moments that a little kid goes through.
Initially starting work from home on US podcasts, she was ahead of the pack in Australia.
Now we're about 60 clients globally that we work with. A lot of them are Australian and a lot of them are small businesses.
There are an estimated 330,000 mumpreneurs in Australia, and that number is expected to grow as women strive for a better work-life balance.
Always having that end goal in mind, will this be flexible for me? Because there's a lot of jobs that aren't.
The top 5 business ideas for working from home include creating your own product like jewellery or clothing, becoming a blogger or freelance writer, selling a digital product like graphic design, becoming a virtual assistant, reviewing products online. The building blocks for a budding empire. Samantha Heathwood, 7 News.
You probably don't realise it, but some of our biggest retailers are using facial recognition technology on unsuspecting customers. Why and what it means next.
And at the moment it's 16 degrees here in Shorncliffe. Warmer tomorrow. I'll have the forecast coming up next.
This weather report brought to you by Sportsbet's Same Game Multi.
Technology experts are demanding an immediate halt to facial recognition technology after revelations some of Australia's biggest retailers are using it on customers. They claim it's to protect against violence, an explanation critics have scoffed at.
Walking into your local Bunnings or Kmart today, every customer was being watched more closely than ever before.
Mate, look at my face if they want, pretty ugly.
While some see the lighter side of facial recognition technology, others say it's enough to make them stay away.
Well, I don't think it's a good idea. That's invasion of privacy.
After a tip-off, Choice started asking questions and the retailers, including the good guys, owned up.
We got a tip-off from a Choice member about Kmart, and that made us go and look a bit more deeply.
They say it's only to keep the staff and customers safe and identify shoplifters who might come back.
That major retail chains are routinely collecting facial data of customers should send a chill down the spine of anyone that cares about their personal privacy.
While Kmart says it only keeps the data for 30 days, Choice fears retailers could start selling off the information.
They're all concerned that there could be future uses for profiling or marketing.
Choice is ultimately calling for a wide-ranging investigation by the Information Commissioner. Other groups say this sort of use of technology should just stop until proper legal protections are put in place.
So we're calling on the new government to take some meaningful action to ensure that these technologies aren't rolled out without due protections.
Though not everyone sees the serious side.
It's the new reality, so it's all good.
Evan Batten, 7 News.
Oh, weather now, Tony, all good with plenty of sunshine today.
Yes, Max, we started with some early fog, but it didn't take long for that blue sky to poke through. It's been a stunning afternoon here at Shorncliffe down by the water and not too cold this evening as well. Let's get in and check today's numbers. Single figures inland still. Coastal areas were warmer last night, a top of 23 degrees just across at Redcliffe. Now to the satellite, a high in the Tasman Sea driving our weather, relatively humid and mild northeast winds onto the coast. Elsewhere, a trough brings some wet weather to Victoria and Tasmania. Tomorrow, that system moves a bit closer and we get light westerly winds wrapping around that system into Queensland, helping to bring some extra warmth. Around the nation, pack the brolly if you're headed to Adelaide, Melbourne or Canberra. Showers on the forecast there tomorrow. Back to Queensland in the tropics, not much change. A partly cloudy 25 degrees in Mackay, warmer for Townsville and Cairns. In the south, plenty of fog, especially around the Wide Bay and Burnett. Then mostly sunny skies to follow, 7 to 19 in Toowoomba. Across the southeast, more early fog, especially inland, then clearing to mostly sunny skies through the late morning and afternoon. A slightly warmer day, 10 to 24 in Logan. Across the suburbs, a few 24s inland and 11 to 23 just up the road here at Sandgate. Boaties, it's looking good. West-southwest winds to 10 knots, seas under half a metre. Watch for some inundation of low-lying areas on the high tide around 11:30 p.m. tonight. Those high tides are thanks to this, the full moon. At this time, the moon and the sun are pulling in opposite directions, helping to increase that tidal range. This was the view of that moon rising at the port of Brisbane a short time ago. In Brisbane, possible early fog, then a mostly sunny Thursday ahead, 11 up to 24 degrees. Then a subtle cooler change into Friday. Still sunny, 10 up to 22. In Ipswich, a little bit of patchy cloud returning over the weekend, but still looking good to get out and about. Tops of 23 degrees on Saturday and Sunday. And Gold Coasters, you might just have a brief passing shower from Monday into early next week, but still plenty of dry breaks and a little bit of sunshine in there too. And on the Sunshine Coast, your highest chance of a shower is on Monday, but for the most part through the next week, we're looking at a comfortable and dry 7 days ahead. A beautiful calm evening here at Shorncliffe.
You enjoy it. It's a nice spot indeed. All right, thank you, Tony. Now, before we go, here's a look at some special reports we have for you tomorrow night.
Tomorrow in 7 News, enough is enough. The call for action as the cost of living spirals. Relief at last in supermarkets, but what about power and petrol? And what are our politicians doing? How you can have your say. Fighting for a fair go for families. On 7 News, Queensland's news.
That's all from us this Wednesday. Thanks for your company.
Catch Sam Mack at the Redcliffe Jetty in the morning on Sunrise. That's from 5:30. But for now, from all the team, have a good night.
Good night. Good, darling. Good,